No matter what you drive, petrol, EV, hybrid, it's road user charges for one and all as the government scraps petrol taxes in favour of a system it reckons will be fairer and simpler. But critics say the government's plan to privatise the collection of road user charges means we could end up paying more. Someone's got to make a buck. Chris Bishop's Minister for Transport with us this morning. Minister, good morning.
Good morning.
Will we be paying more, your average punter paying more or less?
It will depend on how we set the ruck rate and on the transition. But what we need to do is make sure that we make this change, because if we don't, we won't be able to pay for the roads and the maintenance of the roads as we go forward. Because what's happening in our vehicle fleet at the moment is you've got the rise of hybrids and the rise of EVs. 10 years ago, there were about 12,000 hybrids on the road. Now there's 350,000 hybrids. The revenue that goes into the National Land Transport Fund is gradually being eroded because fewer and fewer people are paying petrol tax, obviously, and that's what helps fund the fund. And so we need to move to a system that's fairer, which is basically you pay for what you use of the roads, so you pay in terms of distance and you pay in terms of weight. That's the ruck system, and it will be electronic, which of course makes it much easier to administer.
For your average, what would you like for your average commuter in New Zealand? Would you like them to be paying more or less? Do you have any, surely you've got some projections on what the average commuter would face?
Well, it really depends. It depends on the car, it depends on the weight of the car, it depends on how much people drive, it depends on the fuel efficiency of people.
Toyota Corolla.
Obviously.
Auckland commuter, Toyota Corolla. Your classic.
Yeah, it depends how old the car is, but the basic thing would be for them is. Yeah, the short answer is it will depend. It will
Petrol.
depend on how much you drive. It's the most important point.
Every day, to work.
Yeah, so at the moment, people who are driving older, more fuel inefficient cars are paying more, and people who are driving hybrids are paying relatively less because of the petrol component. That would be my point.
What about the weight?
Those people are being cross-subsidised by people who are driving more fuel inefficient vehicles, and some people would say that's not fair.
Yeah. So what about the weight thing? Because EVs are way more heavier than your traditional combustion engines, right? Does that mean that, all things being equal, the weight would mean the EV for the same distance would be paying more?
Yeah, so that's partly why there's a lot of complexity to work through, and we haven't set the rates yet. This is a few years away, so I just want to hasten to reassure people that this is not something that's happening tomorrow or next week or even next year. This is kind of 2027, 2028, so we're at least a couple of years away from doing this, and as part of that we'll be working out the distance and the weight component and exactly how much people will pay depending on what they've got, obviously. And it's important to get that right, because you could set a system where you have a really graduated series of weight classes. You could break it down into 20 different weight classes. Now, obviously, that comes with administration and makes it complicated. But obviously, that would, arguably, that would be a fairer thing to do. But there's a trade-off between simplicity and administration, and so we've just got to work our way through that, and that's what we'll be doing
Fair
in the
enough.
next 2 or 3 years.
What about how will you actually know, because it's all going to be electronic, how will you know how far I've travelled?
So there's a couple of ways to do that. Firstly, you could put a little transponder in the car, and other countries and jurisdictions have had this for ages. So you just put a little thing on your dashboard, and it connects into an app, and it works out how much you've driven. That's how you pay for your tolls, for example.
Does it tell you how
in Sydney when you go through a toll?
Yeah. Does it tell you where you've been as well, or just how many kilometres you've done?
That's all on the technology. It can do, but there's not actually any particular need to do that. If you're just going to do it on a distance base, then you don't need to work out exactly where you've been and things like that. So you don't have to do that. And there would be privacy concerns about tracking where people are and things like that, which I fully understand. But when you go through a toll road, for example, it just it hits the gantry, or it hits the part of the toll road, gives you a little beep, and then it charges you. And so it works out what tolls you're going through, potentially as we move towards time of use pricing, which is a so-called congestion charge. It could link into that as well. So we're actually miles behind the rest of the world, to be honest. Other countries have had technology in their cars like this for ages. And then the other way is modern cars actually have this built into the car.
Yeah.
So the new cars entering we just don't turn it on in New Zealand because we don't have a system where we need to, because you pay through petrol tax. But modern cars actually have this built into the car, and so there's a way of linking that into some sort of payment system. Overall, it'll be once we've rolled it out, it'll be like electricity. You'll drive, and at the end of the month, you'll get a bill, and it will say you drove 1,000 kilometres this month times X amount. And it might be you pay a couple of tolls, and that's on your bill, and you can see that. And it might be you paid a congestion charge, and that'll be on your bill, and then you'll just pay it.
Okay. And there'll be no, because the PSA's come out and said, it's because you're going to have private companies doing this, they will need to make a profit. That's a recipe for higher costs for drivers. What do you say to that?
Well, the noted transport experts at the PSA, I think. I'm not really going to be taking advice from them. I don't think.
No, but it's the principle of it, Minister.
Well, there's two ways to do it. One is you could run a government scheme, which would be arguably pretty inefficient because it would end up being a government monopoly. Or you could just have government set the standards, set the rules, and then let technology providers compete. Based on the different payment systems that are out there. That's our preferred approach is to go out to the market and see what's out there. We may end up with a whole range of different competing payment providers which will compete on ease of payment and simplicity of using the system. They may add other features to it. So that's our preferred approach.
All right.
And we're going to go to the market and talk to them about it.
Petrol should get a lot cheaper, eh? The nominal price, I mean.
Petrol tax will be abolished. I really want to stress that. So this is not an add-on. It's not like you pay your petrol tax at the pump and then you pay your ruck. We are abolishing petrol tax.
Yeah.
So if you've got a petrol car, when you fill your car up, you will pay for the cost of the petrol and your sausage roll that you buy at the service station and all that. That's all fine. But then you pay for your ruck separately.
Yeah. What's the petrol tax at the moment? Do you know what percentage are we paying?
About 70 cents a litre.
Wow. Okay, so it'll be considerably cheaper, but then you'll get a bill at the end of the month in the mail. Minister, thanks very much for coming.
But you won't have to pay up front. So
yes.
It'll be from a cash flow point of view for a lot of households. It'll actually be quite good because you won't have to pay $150 when you fill your car up.
Chris Bishop, appreciate your time this morning, Minister of Transport.